advisor to Mr. President on information strategy is available on our special guest, the special advisor to the President of Energy, Mrs. Olu, the representative of the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry, Mrs. Comfort Ajiboye, the Director General and the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Press Council, Mr. David Izuga, the Senior Special Assistant to Mr. President of Media and Publicity, Mr. Senitope Ajayi. I welcome all the editors, bureau chiefs, and other gentlemen of the media that are seated here today. Let me formally welcome every one of you to this Ministerial press briefing. This is the fourth in the series of our press briefings. The maiden edition featured the Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Food Security and the President of Senator Abuja. The second in the series featured the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Doris Uzo. And the third edition featured the Honorable Minister of Health and Social Welfare in the person of Professor Muhammad Al-Basi. Today, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this spot, Ministerial President will be featuring the special advisor to Mr. President of Energy. Let me at this point formally welcome the special advisor on energy to this platform. Thank you so much for coming. Let me quickly say that this platform provides opportunity for the government to share very useful information and the efforts of government in the position for those services delivered. It is the responsibility of a responsible government to tell Nigerians exactly what they are doing to better the lives of the people. And we believe it is the right of the people to know what government is doing to bring democratic dividends to the people of this great nation. Very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you and thank you for coming. Let me quickly recognize the presence of the Director General, Voice of Nigeria, in the person of Madam Jibril Baba-Ndaji. I welcome you, thank you for coming. Let me say that our directors, I want to thank you for coming. I want to assure you that as we progress in this service, we will do recognize some of our dignitaries and the ones who are generous in the course of time. It is very important to let you know that this Ministerial press briefing is covered live by the Nigerian Television Authority and the Federal Revenue Corporation of Nigeria. At the same time, it is just part of the people to let you also understand that at the end of the presentation of the special advisor to Mr. President on Energy, will be taking one or two questions from the gentlemen of the media. But let me quickly give this information. When we get to that segment, and you are recognized to speak, please tell us your name, the media organization you are representing, and please restrict your questions or your comments to the issues to be addressed by our special guest, the special advisor to Mr. President on Energy. And please let us be decent enough in the use of language. We will appreciate that. Having said that, let me at this point invite our chief moderator for today in the person of the special advisor to Mr. President on information and strategy, Mr. Bala, to please the opening remarks. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the Minister of Information, Alhaji Idris, Muhammad Idris, I welcome all of you. I want to truly thank you all for always heeding our call to attend this ministerial briefing. Really appreciate it a lot. Today is time for us to present Ms. Olu Va-Ejen. I think I'm correct. She's the special advisor on energy. Let me tell you, she's an expert in that area. She spent over 20 years in the sector. She's not just an advisor, she understands the industry very well. And all of us will recall that a few days ago, the president issued an executive order that will affect very notably our gas sector. Mrs. Olu Va-Ejen is the initiator of all this move to make sure that we actually revolutionize the gas sector. It's a sector that is actually waiting to be tapped. And everybody knows that we have more gas than oil. And the executive order, we believe, will be a game changer in that industry to unlock so many things, billions and billions of dollars in investment, and our country surely needs it now. Without much ado, let me just invite her to brief us more about this reform that has just been executed or issued by Mr. President. Gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Olu Va-Ejen. We are going to swap seats.
Is this one working well?
Good morning, Excellencies and distinguished ladies, gentlemen, and members of the press. Thank you for being here. I am Mrs. Olu Va-Ejen. I'm the Special Advisor on Energy to His Excellency, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. It's International Women's Day, and I see a few women in the room. I'd like to acknowledge every woman contributing their talents to the advancement of Nigeria. I wish you more courage and tenacity so Nigeria can finally realize the fullness of its potential. Yesterday, Wednesday, 6th March, the President introduced 3 policy directives as part of our ongoing efforts to create a more enabling business environment. We'd like to use this medium to ensure a clear understanding of the rationale behind the policy directives, the expected outcomes, and more importantly, answer any questions you may have. The members of the press play an integral role in translating for readers and the average Nigerian the significance and the potential impact of our government policies. Our ambition to accelerate economic growth and diversify the economy for the benefit of all Nigerians requires timely, credible, clear, and consistent policy. We're faced with a revenue crisis which is impacting all Nigerians. To urgently address this, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is actively seeking ways to grow revenue and foreign exchange earnings so we can stabilize our economy and our currency. The oil and gas sector is critical to our ability to do this. However, our current oil and gas production and investment levels fall significantly short of our potential. Since 2016, Nigeria has only accounted for about 4% of Africa's total oil and gas investments, despite possessing 38% of the continent's hydrocarbon reserves. Our society is not rich because of its endowments or its resources. It will become rich because of what we do with those resources. His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu is determined to reverse this trend and take decisive steps to ensure conducive business climate and reposition Nigeria as a preferred destination for the oil and gas sector. To achieve these objectives, the President has issued a presidential directive to streamline and clarify the scope of the 2 regulators in the petroleum sector. This will provide certainty and create a conducive environment. He has also directed the National Security Advisor and the Special Advisor on Energy to coordinate enhanced security measures in the Niger Delta in collaboration with NMPCL and the Ministry of Petroleum. Owing to this directive, for example, the Trans-Niger pipeline, which has been repeatedly vandalized, is now enjoying improved uptime. Availability has practically doubled since these directives were implemented. This has translated to an increased production of 200,000 barrels per day over the last 6 months, and it has increased the availability of NLNG's trains 1 to 6 from an average of 57% in 2023 to now around 70%. The President has also introduced fiscal incentives to deepen compressed natural gas and liquefied petroleum penetration. These incentives were designed to ease the impact of fuel subsidies on transport and enable the displacement of PMS and diesel. It is also contributing to stabilizing the price of cooking gas in the market and support our transition to clean cooking. Now, following extensive engagements, they don't have a UPS. Gas jurisdictions. The President has taken further action to address foundational issues identified in the course of these engagements. Pending legislative amendments, the President has initiated amendment of primary legislation to introduce fiscal incentives, reduce project execution timeline, and promote cost efficiency. However, recognizing the urgency to accelerate investment to stabilize the economy, His Excellency executed these policy directives to clearly signal the policy direction of this administration to both the market and regulators. The policy directives are as follows. The first one is a fiscal incentive for non-associated gas and deep water oil and gas investments. This directive aims to facilitate monetization of Nigeria's oil and gas resources. For gas, 76% of our reserves remain undeveloped. This explains why despite possessing the largest reserves globally, we lack sufficient gas to meet our domestic needs for industry, for power, and for cooking. The fiscal incentives will attract much needed investments to enhance energy security, catalyze economic activity, and attract essential foreign exchange, as well as promote job creation. The streamlining of contracting processes, procedures, and timelines is covered in the second directive. This is aimed at reducing project execution timelines and fast-track delivery of oil and gas to the market. The benchmarks and analysis revealed that contracting cycles in Nigeria can take up to 36 months. This directive aims to compress that cycle to less than 6 months in line with global averages. The third one is a local content reform. This directive ensures that local content requirements are implemented in a manner that does not impede investments or the cost competitiveness of our oil and gas projects. It aims to reduce the cost premium of operating in Nigeria, which can be as high as 40%. We anticipate significant benefits from this reform, including the development of local companies' capacity and thereby generating additional business opportunity, job creation, and economic growth. The implementing partners, a diverse array of stakeholders were consulted and provided input into these policy directives. These stakeholders will be some of these stakeholders will be responsible for implementation. For the fiscal incentives, the Minister of Finance and coordinating Minister of the Economy will develop and propose amendments to introduce fiscal incentives for deep water projects into legislation. The Federal Inland Revenue Service and the Nigeria Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission will issue guidelines on the implementation of the fiscal incentives. The streamlining of contracting processes, procedures, the shareholders of NMPC, MOFI and MOPI, will be responsible for procuring the necessary documents to ensure implementation of those streamlined processes. For local content, the NCDMB will be responsible for implementing this directive and issuing supporting guidelines. The details of the role of each stakeholder are contained in the policy directives, which have now been gazetted and available to the public. For coordination, the Special Advisor to the President on Energy will continue to play the coordinating role in ensuring the implementation of these directives within the timelines stipulated. In conclusion, our need to fuel economic growth at rates that significantly exceed our population growth has never been more urgent. The President strongly believes that private sector-led growth, enabled by clear and inclusive government policies, is the most enduring path to prosperity for all Nigerians. We will sustain our engagements and collaboration with key investors to ensure we attract not only capital, but also the capabilities this sector requires to catalyze job creation, productivity, income growth across multiple sectors. Our laser focus on enabling transformational economic opportunities to lift millions of Nigerians, hardworking Nigerians, out of poverty is resolute. Thank you for joining us.
Very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, they said the woman cannot be assessed by the words of a man, but you will agree with me that Nigerian women are great thinkers. You can see that this woman is a visionary person who combines knowledge with integrity. I want to thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. Excellent to Mr. President of Energy.
Thank you.
While I was doing the introductory aspect of this briefing, I omitted one of our great personalities as the CEO of the United States, Mr. Dada Olush, who is the Special Assistant on Social Media to Mr. President. We welcome you. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Let me also inform you that the Special Assistant to the Honorable Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mr. Abuja, you welcome. Thank you for coming. At this point, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are going to a very important aspect of this presentation, which of course is the question and answer segment. Like I said from the outset, when you are recognized to speak, please tell us the name, the media organization, and this restricts your questions to the public so the issues are addressed by the essay to Mr. President of Energy in the presentation. Let us be decent now in the use of the language and we really appreciate it. At this point, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to declare the floor open for questions, please. Just raise your hands if you have questions. Thank you.
Well, before the floor is declared open, let me just inform colleagues here that a copy of this speech is available. The e-copy of it will be circulated so that you can have the full gist of what the special advisor has disclosed. Thank you
So the floor is now open. Please let's see your hands. 1, 2, 3. We'll take the first 3 questions, and if time permits, we'll take more questions. Let's start with the front, please.
President's energy. My name is Sonny Daniel. I work with Bangladesh. I believe that the President has done well by seeing the need to appoint a special advisor on energy, an area that is very critical for the development in Nigeria. My well-being of the people. I've listened to the areas of their focus, but I think that I'm still expecting to hear their holistic plan of using energy from wind, solar, coal, and other sources that can complement gas. I just want you to give us what we think we are bringing to the table, the holistic plan. If a household cannot use gas, should be able to use solar, should be able to use wind or any other source, because it's the mix that bring about the change from the near total dependence on petrol, gas, and all that. So I want you to talk to us on this other source of energy. Thank you.
The next question, please.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Lee from Nigerian. Almost last year, President Tinubu said that we go further on the price of petrol. Ever since then, we have noticed that marketers have continued to have money. It's 10,000 naira. The time we go next week, 10 naira is average. So I don't want to understand what is happening. Is the presidency determined to hold the price of fuel, or is it has to be here that there is a very controversy as to whether or not the president, the government has continued to pay subsidy. Now that you are here, maybe you can take this opportunity to verify this for us. It's where government is paying international subsidy as claimed by an international organization sending on that. Thank you.
Okay, let's we'll come to you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Adewale. First is on the Sahara pipeline, gas pipeline to Nigeria and Europe. So far, the development has spent about $1 million on this, and the project is scheduled to be completed. And from what the plans, the government is shooting for another $1 million to spend on this. But given the fact that Europe is not getting LNG from US and the Gulf countries, do you think this project is still, do you think it's feasible, do you think it's financially viable for Nigeria? Because our target is actually the Euro gas demand, which occurred following the outset of the war and Ukraine. So do you think that project is financially viable for the country? Secondly, on the subsidy issue, the IMF says claim that Nigeria is taking subsidy and actually said in a statement a few days ago that it will cost Nigeria about 3% of the GDP this year if the development sustains subsidy on petroleum and energy. So I'd like you to clarify whether this is true and whether the government will continue to sustain the subsidy in view of its impact on the masses. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take the last one from Ministerial.
Good day. My name is Amadin Kuli from Ministerial Television. Last year, when Mr. President announced the removal of petrol subsidy, the idea of switching to compressed natural gas was mooted, and every expert admitted it was a novel idea, but still some believe it was a lofty ambition because Nigeria does not have the infrastructure to transit fully to compressed natural gas. Labour have been crying where the CNG buses. But the question we're asking is almost 9 years since Mr. President took over the saddle. What is government doing in terms of making infrastructure available for Nigeria to successfully transit to compressed natural gas? Because from where the press is saying maybe we don't have enough information, it's as if government is not ready to work in stock. Thank you.
That's the line you wish to respond to all these questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the questions. On the plan on other sources of energy, if you've reviewed our Nigeria Energy Transition Plan, you'd recognize that gas is our transition fuel. As I said, we are one of the top 10 gas reserves holders. The levelized cost of some renewable energy sources is twice the cost of gas. So, for now, given the level of energy poverty in this country, gas remains our short to medium-term plan to power, to deliver to power. 85%, almost over 80% of our grid is powered by gas. We intend to then also ensure that we have enough into the industries, into commercial businesses, because frankly, that is more cost competitive, and gas has to play a role given the levels of affordability, because we have to pay attention to not only sustainability, but we need to make sure that we're energy secure and that we can afford it given the level of energy poverty in the country. What are the plans? A holistic plan. On the off-grid side, where we don't have extension of the grid, where we've determined that it is more expensive to extend the grid versus the level of consumption, there is quite a bit of renewable projects run by the Renewable Electrification Agency, whether that's microgrids and mini-grids that are interconnectable, and at some point, as consumption grows, we'll be able to connect those, but most of them are powered by solar. In the north, we see a big role for solar. When it comes to the grid, though, we've realized that we are not yet ready to diversify the energy mix for electricity, especially on-grid electricity, because there's some underlying structural issues that need to be addressed. The financial stability of that entire value chain is critical to address, and you need to do that by addressing the challenges and the constraints that we have in transmission and on the distribution end. And you would have seen the Honorable Minister of Power speaking to some of those things. Until we address those fundamental issues, ensuring that the DISCOs, for example, make sure that all customers are metered, and we have a level of assurance and revenue in that electricity value chain, then it would not make sense. You would not be able to attract capital into distribution. You will not be able to attract capital into transmission, and definitely not be able to pay your current gas suppliers or potentially solar or hydro suppliers of generation capacity. So the fundamental issue that we're addressing at the moment is to focus on financial liquidity with technology interventions through the Presidential Metering Initiative, for example, reviewing policies and structural issues that allow capital to flow into that value chain, and then allow us to diversify beyond gas on the grid. On the question of subsidy, the subsidy was removed. On May 29th, it was removed. However, a government has the prerogative, whether in the US, in the West, in the South, in other Eastern countries, all governments have a prerogative to maintain price stability and prevent social unrest. So if prices are moving, they reserve the right to intervene. It's done in the US. During COVID, there was a lot of interventionist moves that are also subsidies. All governments reserve that right. And so if for whatever reason, the administration has reviewed that it is not time, it's not the right time to have prices continue to fluctuate, given the level of hardship in the country, given inflation, the government has the right to intervene intermittently. All governments do so, but it does not negate the fact that the subsidy was removed. Infrastructure, I'll go to the infrastructure, the Sahara gas pipeline and CNG, because they're all infrastructure, whether you're building infrastructure for domestic consumption or for export. The objectives of this fiscal incentives that the president has signed, like I said, over 70% of our reserves remain undeveloped. We need to address the fundamental issues in sectors so that we can attract capital to the infrastructure end. There is no one who's going to invest in midstream infrastructure if they don't have assurance or line of sight to the attractiveness of gas supply. So if the gas suppliers are not making investments because the fiscal terms or the business environment is a very difficult one in which to invest in, then it would be very difficult to continue to mature midstream projects and downstream projects, because you have to deal with the ab initio problem, which is gas supply. And that is exactly what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has done with fast-tracking this policy directives, to ensure that we have gas supply, sufficient gas supply, whether we're trying to export to a Trans-Sahara gas pipeline, whether we're trying to compress natural gas or liquefy it for domestic use, whether we're trying to have floating LNGs as alternative ways of getting gas into the market. All of those things are enabled by these policies that unlock supply. I've combined them. Yes, I believe the question of CNG was around infrastructure, and I've just addressed that. There is a fund that exists and is ready to make investments in infrastructure. There are lots of investors who are very interested in making investments in infrastructure, but it's like building a road without having a car to drive on it. You cannot invest in infrastructure to compress gas if there is no gas.
I don't know if you can accommodate. Okay. We'll just take it. Please, we'll take two more. 1, 2. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Abuja. I work for let's see. You please provide a timeline for the implementation of the clarification of that when should we expect those to be implemented. Then last National Energy Summit, the CEO of the NNPC talked about energy 8 talks together as well as we usually have any more details on that. And just add one more, that it's good that the President talked about these executive orders. I'm curious to know, as his essence of energy, what have you told him and what has he told you about the pending divestment deals? Last year, they had the summit and he had the oil majors, Shell, Owando, complain about they want to sell bias, but it feels like someone is standing with you and preventing that from happening. What has the President told you about spending things and what has been your advice to you? Thank you.
We'll just take the last one from this side.
discovered that most drivers of abandoned carrying passengers now prefer to carry a shuttle across the state, in the state, but it has become more lucrative. Also, last weekend, national state here issued a warning that it was going to prosecute and jail producers of shuttle and retailers. I will speak to this issue.
Yes,
okay, thank you. Implementation timelines. For each directive, they're different. So I really encourage the members of the press to review the documents that will be that have been published. The gazetted documents for each policy directive have it. But it is very clear that this needs to be done in a short while because we are trying to signal to investors to make these investments as quickly as possible. But each directive has different timelines, so I don't want to be misquoted. But let's say all of it within a quarter is roughly what we're expecting to get all of the different incentives done. But as you can recognize, this is not an easy process to coordinate across several agencies. But the President's directive is a signal to all of the participants and stakeholders to move as quickly as he has. On Train 8, again, it is a use of gas that we are talking about. And if we do not enable the supply of gas, and if you recall some of the conversations around when the MD of NLNG said those conversations needed to be stepped down, it was due to the fact that trains 1 to 6 was functioning roughly around that time at about 53% of its capacity. We've been able to grow that to 70%. These incentives that we've just fast-tracked will also allow us to ensure that there is supply for Train 7, which is far gone in its construction phase. From those investors' perspectives, until those fundamental investment decisions that they have been taking are assured supply by some of the actions we've taken this week, then Train 8, a Trans-Sahara gas pipeline, CNG, more LPG in the market is really dependent on investing in more supply, which we've just incentivized. The pending divestments. It's the government's role to set strategic objectives around where it's trying to go as a country. We've outlined our strategic objective is to grow production so that we can grow our revenue and use that revenue to enable economic opportunities for more and more Nigerians. So the divestments have to be to parties who have the technical and financial capacity to deliver along those objectives. So they will need to have the technical and financial capacity not only to stem decline, but also to grow production so that we can have more revenue and more opportunities for Nigerians. There is no one standing in anyone's way. The government has a right to evaluate and ascertain that assets are moving when assets are moving from one party to the other, that it is someone who is moving to a party that can actually deliver along those lines and those objectives. Pricing of cooking gas. The President introduced certain initiatives last Christmas, around November, and we saw a dip in prices. Some of these things are market price driven. A significant portion of our LPG is imported. So we are price takers, not price setters. However, because the President was very concerned about the cost of living, he approved a fast tracking of fiscal incentives to enable more investments into the LPG space, with the hope that if we achieve scale, we can bring down costs. And then we can also incentivize the domestication of some of our LPG production instead of exporting it. We saw it dip, but unfortunately foreign exchange and the market moved against us and those prices increased. We're going to continue to work and look at more opportunities to improve supply and scale up and enable more LPG into the market at affordable prices. It's a priority of this administration.
Gentlemen of the media, this is what you from you today. I don't know if the chief of this of today, do you have any?
Well, except to thank the opportunity for coming to this conference. We expect very robust reports from all of us, and we just understand what Mr. President is trying to do in the oil sector, oil and gas sector. Thank you for coming. I think we'll call you again next week.
Thank you very much. Before I call for the national anthem, like we normally do, the chief moderator, after the national anthem,
you will lead the essay to Mr. President of Energy to the President to see and say hello to our editors and other gentlemen of the media. At this point, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this Mr. President. Thank you. Hold these lines as we take the national